This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. The holidays mean more travel, more shopping, more time online, and more personal info in places that could expose you to identity theft. That's why LifeLock monitors millions of data points every second. If your identity is stolen, their US-based restoration specialist will fix it, guaranteed or your money back. Get more holiday fun and less holiday worry with LifeLock. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
Hey, I'm Amanda from Trifecta Fitness. We're proud to be Clarksville's new Get Fit headquarters. Trifecta Fitness is a state-of-the-art spin and strength training studio. Our spin studio is truly one of a kind in this area, complete with 20 state-of-the-art live fitness bikes and an incredible sound system. Our strength training is done in small groups of 6 or fewer, and all of our strength and spin classes are scalable for every level of experience. Come see us in the heart of Clarksville, just behind MAPCO at the corner of Old Trenton Road and Wilma Rudolph Boulevard. Call us for more info at 931-542-6265 or download our Trifecta Fitness app for a full list of upcoming classes.
In October 2019, Arlington, Texas was chosen to be the home of a new national museum, unlike any other. The National Medal of Honor Museum will be a unique home of military history. The 100,000 square foot museum will house exhibits, archives, and artifacts relating to the 3,500 U.S. troops who have been awarded the medal, the nation's highest honor for valor in combat. The museum will have 31,000 square feet of galleries dedicated to U.S. troops who have received the award. The museum CEO, former Navy SEAL and NASA astronaut Chris Cassidy, said the museum will focus on education as much as preservation. The building will have 5 areas dedicated to Medal of Honor winners from the Army, Marine Corps, Navy, Air Force, and Coast Guard. The main gallery will be located in a central plaza under a 25,000 square foot slab of steel, which will appear to be suspended in midair. It will be supported by 5 pillars. Black Rifle Coffee is a corporate sponsor of the museum, as are the Dallas Cowboys. The museum's board also includes over a dozen major corporations and 6 Medal of Honor recipients, including David Bellavia, Patrick Brady, and Britt Slabinski. Army Staff Sergeant Bellavia was awarded the medal for clearing an entire house by himself on November 10, 2004, as a squad leader in support of Operation Phantom Fury in Fallujah, Iraq. He killed 4 enemy fighters and wounded a 5th in close quarters battle. Army Major General Brady flew and coordinated the evacuation of 51 seriously wounded men during a firefight in Vietnam in January 1968. Slabinski, a Navy SEAL chief and team leader, led a rescue team of SEALs during Operation Anaconda in Afghanistan in March 2002. Slabinski and his team flew to a mountaintop ambush site to rescue Petty Officer First Class Neil Roberts, who had fallen from the back of a helicopter. Slabinski led the team through almost constant combat against an entrenched Taliban force. Along with the board members, former presidents Jimmy Carter, Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, and Barack Obama serve as honorary directors. The museum is expected to open to the public in late 2024.
All right. Welcome back.
MisFitNation, the MisFitNation show.
We are a show founded by a veteran and hosted by 2 veterans and a military spouse. Our mission is to get people to tell their stories to the world. If you're an author, share your tips with the Misfit Nation. If you're a musician or an actor, our audience needs to know how they too can get into the business. Coaches, we love our coaches. Come on and share your tips with the Misfit Nation to help them become better versions of themselves. If you are a corporate leader or an entrepreneur, come on and show how you did it and how hard you have fought for success. If you are a veteran, first responder, or Gold Star family, we would love to have you come on and share your story with the Misfit Nation. we always have time for you. If you're feeling down, alone, or starting to see the darkness, stop. Think about those who are around you. You are not alone. You will be missed. If you feel like your problems will be a burden to those in your inner circle or feel embarrassed, dial 988. If you are a veteran, take option 1. We need you to keep pushing forward. Don't make a permanent solution to a temporary problem. If you are a new listener, welcome to the Misfit Nation
Show.
Be sure to subscribe to our show on your favorite podcast app. Also on our YouTube channel at @the_MisFitNation. Subscribe and click the bell to keep you up to date on our latest episodes and all of our news. You can also find us on Heroes Media Group and About Face Radio. Now, let's get to the show!
All right. Welcome back to the Misfit Nation Show, Thursday after dinner edition, episode 439. Thank you for joining us tonight. I know you have plenty of things you could be doing and plenty of places you could be, but you're right here with us, so we thank you for that. Thank you for being on the other night with guest Betsy Ross, Cagney and Lacey on the Tuesday Crew Show. It was a great show, great chat. Everyone had a blast. Good job to them guys. Tonight we'll start off with our memorial stuff again as usual. We had a break, but now we have 2 to add tonight. Police Officer Austin McAtar, San Diego Police Department, California, and The Watch, August 26, 2024. Investigator Wayne David, Metropolitan Police Department, Washington, D.C., and The Watch, August 28th, 2024. Keep those 2 officers, their families, their friends, and their peers in your thoughts and prayers as they go through this tough time. And remember, it's easier to be nice to each other than to go out and commit violence in your streets. Tonight we have a good one. He is the father of 3 boys and a well-known commentator in the world of American parenting. His most recent book is a second edition of 4 Lessons from My 3 Sons, How You Can Raise Resilient Kids, in which he outlines his parenting techniques and the path of his sons through childhood and adolescence to the U.S. Naval Academy, Williams College, and West Point. The first edition was subject of feature stories in multiple publications, including NPR, Parents Magazine, and Young Teen Magazine. So without further ado, let's welcome U.S. Army veteran and author Jeff Nelligan to the Misfit Nation. Welcome, Jeff.
Hey, Rich. Thanks for having me, man. This is great. Really appreciate it.
It's awesome that we were able to get the link to you to the right email address at the last second. So
yeah, man.
Sorry about the confusion on both sides.
It was my fault, man. That's why I never got above E4.
Usually that's the mafia right there. The mafia usually knows everything. So Jeff, tell us a little more about you. I gave a little bit about you, basically the first 2 sentences of your bio. Tell us a little more about Jeff and from as far back as you want to go to how we got here.
Yeah, man. Hey, well, real quick, grew up in Los Angeles, went to school in the East, was involved in politics for many, many years, worked on the Hill for 3 members of Congress, was twice a presidential appointee, worked on a bunch of national campaigns. But, 2 of the most important things, maybe the most important, was 1, having 3 sons who are today military officers, and 2, being 14 years as an enlisted guy in the Army Reserve. And I'm not just saying that to blow smoke. That's the truth.
And it's even harder being a reservist or a citizen soldier and then also doing the work you were doing on the Hill and raising 3 boys. So it's a lot of things at once.
Yeah, it was. But all of it worth it.
And all your boys are Army now, or you have one Naval Academy, so that's Marine or Navy, right?
Correct. I have 2 guys in the 2 naval officers and 1 who the West Point grad who is on hiatus from the service because he's playing pro rugby here for the Professional Rugby League in the United States. And then he'll go back to Benning and infantry school and all that to be, platoon commander, company commander.
Oh, nice. Does he have aspirations going to the next Olympics for the rugby, or is he thinking?
Oh, boy. Yeah, he does. I don't think he can. I don't know. I've never counted him out. I mean, he was a walk-on at West Point his first year. and he ended up first team All-American his senior year. So, the guy's got a motor.
He definitely does. What's his the other two sons? What's their grades? He's infantry, obviously. What are the other two?
Sure. One is an intel officer, and the other one's a surface warfare officer. Okay. And they've both been on, big deployments. Both of them, one twice, the other 3 times, all over Persian Gulf, Strait of Hormuz, Med, North Atlantic, Pearl, Asia, India, name it. They've been there.
Wow. So you get some good postcards, hopefully.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
You don't have any that much gray hair, so we're not worried too much. That's good.
No, it's all in God's hands, man. Whatever the heck happens to him.
So what led you to, you wrote the first edition, then of course you upgraded it for a second edition. What made you think I should write this book to maybe help others?
Well, I got back from dropping a kid off at West Point. This is like 6 years ago. And I was sitting out in my backyard. I literally came rolling back to DC 4:00, and I'm sitting out there, pack of Marlboros and a couple Red Bulls, and I'm going, now what am I going to do? All the stuff, it's the empty nest deal, but I'm not too much of a sentimentality guy. what am I going to do? I'm just not going to sit here and dissolve in self-pity. And then I realized, you're 3 military officer sons, and there's something that parents can learn from that, because at the same time I was thinking, hey, these guys turned out really, pretty good thus far, but, knock on wood, I'll tell you, Rich, they can go south tonight. So I don't have any illusions about how life works. And the second thing was, man, I just looked at kids today, when you were talking to Lloyd Hawkins about the whole recruiting thing, and what guys were facing back in the 90s. One of my sons, the SWO officer, is now a recruiter for naval officers. And, it's tough. It's a tough environment. And I just, in general, just the whole idea that kids today, Gen Z in particular, and the youngest millennials, just aren't built for the long haul. Right.
And there's so many other competing things out there now. As time goes on, the 90s, you're still really, the sale of the recruiter was still, we can get you some college, we'll help you pay for college, and you won't go anywhere. And then we went to war for 20 years.
Right.
That sale kind of went away when now you have young men and women that don't want to say, I'm going to raise that right hand and volunteer to put my name on the line to die for my country. I'd rather just go to school and study something that's not going to make anything for me in life.
Right. Yeah, and that's the truth. And, the other things you were talking about with Hawkins were, all the things he was bringing up was the service, teaches you those 3 great things, camaraderie. You got to get along with people. And like Hawkins points out, he goes, hey, man, you may hate them, but you still got to get along with them. And then, you've got the whole adversity thing. There's constant adversity in the service, even in the reserves, man. Every drill weekend, there was a crisis, and you have to deal with it, and you have to deal with it as a team. And the third thing is just the personal discipline to be in shape, to look strack, to have those qualities of, steadfastness and ambition and confidence in yourself. The service, builds those up. There's no question. But it's also to this generation, Gen Z, and I hate to pick on them, but I will, because the numbers back me up.
Yes.
They're just soft. Yeah. And, when you've got, they're spending 8 hours and 47 minutes a day on a cell phone, people between the ages of 10 and 20, 16% of them before they reach the age of 18 are obese or overweight. Half of Gen Z had a major depressive episode in the last year. And, and then they get older. And here's my favorite one, new college grads going to their first job interview with a hiring manager, 35% of them bring their parents. Yes. What the hell? So it's just that whole, the 2 collisions, the majesty of being in the service and wearing a uniform and having that personal respect. And then looking outside at this generation of kids that just, half of them living in the basement playing Minecraft in their parents' home. So I know I sound harsh, but it's just what I've seen a lot of, too much of, and it's disturbing.
I call those the code red in the basement kids, the code red Mountain Dew kids. They sit there and play video games all day, and they come out and their retinas burn when they see the light outside. So that's fun back in.
Yeah. So I mean, again, I hate to pick on them all, but you asked me the animus for the book, and I think that was part of it, was to say, hey, parents, you better get a grip on your kids. You know, I'll tell you, Rich, 75% of the time we're going to spend with our kids is over by the time the kid turns 12 years old, and 90% is over by the time they turn 18. So we better instill the values and the principles and the attitudes and behaviors in them early. Otherwise, the society, the culture will raise them. And I don't think any parent listening right now thinks the culture raising their kid is a good idea.
Hopefully they don't. And please, God, don't let them do that. I think we lost a lot of, a lot of the connectivity of children and making them tough when we started giving a trophy for everybody.
Oh, no question.
Everyone gets a trophy created. I don't have to do anything to get something mindset. So I can just skate through, and then the no child left behind stuff in school. You can be a mediocre student, or not even a mediocre, below mediocre, and still get pushed all the way through high school so they have numbers.
Yeah.
That kind of hurt a whole generation as well.
It did. I agree. That trophy for participation, I mean, I remember the first time it happened to my kids, and they, I just gave them the evil eye, and I said, you're going to take that thing home and put it in the garbage. I said, forget it. There's no trophies for that sort of thing. So again, that's part of the whole, concern that I have.
With the second edition of the book, have you done a book tour with that, or is it still kind of riding the first edition's book tour?
I was lucky, I mean, I've got different big publications, websites have promoted it. And so I've sold it that way. And then I've done a lot of podcasts and then a lot of speaking engagements where I just show up in a suit and tie and say, you people are here because you want to hear about parenting, because maybe there's something that's not all right with your parenting. Well, here's what I did. And, and I say at the same time always that my ex deserves 90% of the credit for how the kids turned out. And then I get like 10% for being a major league nag. But to build kids that have that ambition and confidence and resilience in adversity, every parent wants that. And my kids have been through those things as young children, as preteens, as adolescents, and now, in the service where every day is a challenge. And so parents want to hear that. Parents want to know what can do it. The first thing I start with is you just take that screen, you yank that phone right here out of their hands, and you say, there's a new day dawning, and it just started, because you're not going to be spending 9 hours a day on that thing. And it also requires the parent to be the same way and not having the phone out every time they're around their kids. But it starts with that, but it just starts with engagement, and actionable items that I always give parents are, number one, you yank the phone, and at the same time, you turn the routers in the house off at 7:00, and then you spend an hour a day reading with your kid. If the kid can read, then you read a book next to them. If they can't, you read to them. All the way to 15, 16, 17. You take them out of the house for half an hour, 45 minutes every evening, and walk them around the neighborhood and just say, hey, look, there's a world outside the four walls. You need to absorb it. The biggest thing I'll tell you, Rich, I tell parents is, our job as parents is not to build a relationship with our kid. We already have that.
Yep.
Our only job as parents is to teach our kid to build a relationship with the world outside the front door, hardware stores, the community, neighborhood, school, athletics, volunteer things. That's where the kid is going to spend the bulk of their life without that parent. And so the kid better be very confident and good on his or her feet once he's out there.
Definitely. And the point you just said about parents being their friends, Jake Holland, part of our Tuesday crew, he put that in the chat. He said parents trying to be their kids' friends is a big issue. It's huge.
Yeah.
And then his co-host, my brother, we were only in the house to eat and sleep when we were growing up. So that was the whole thing. There was no coming in unless you did or something was hanging off you or you were getting chased by the police. So there's the only time you went in the house.
Yeah, and that's, you know what? That's great. I mean, I admire that. That's exactly what parents got to hear. You're not coming in the house and you're not with a device in your hand, and you're going to figure out something to do on your own. Correct.
Definitely. And in my book, 13-Step Guide to Success, I put look up 3 inches, get off that screen, look up 3 inches. There's a whole big world out here. Look someone in the eye and smile, look down, pet a dog, do something. Don't always look at that screen. You got to be a human, be social. And that we lost the whole socialization of the youth with the whole, I have to have a device in my hand. This device is babysitting my kid so I can do TikToks or whatever I'm doing right now. But this device is babysitting while I'm doing that. And now that kid has no social skills besides typing stuff behind the screen. Exactly.
You know, I love that phrase, man. Look 3 inches above. That's a classic, man. I wish I'd coined that a million years ago. I was writing this damn thing. But you're right about the socialization. That's why when I say to 1/3 of every kid who's going to their first interview out of college, bringing a parent. I mean, what the heck is going on when something like that happens? And I will tell you also too, my kid, the recruiter, runs into this all the time. Kids don't want to get on the phone with him, or, you know, they'll text, or they don't want to meet up. And he's going, this is the best future you will ever have. Yes. And you can't even meet up at a coffee shop to talk about it. So it's very frustrating, and it is socialization.
Yeah. And because they don't know how to interact, a phone call throws them off completely.
Oh gosh!
If that phone rings, they don't know what to do. Even if it's someone checking on their car warranty, they have no idea what to say. So they'll be befuddled for a while. They'll probably accept the car warranty and wind up wasting a bunch of money because they don't know what to do at that point.
Right?
They don't yell at them and hang up like most of us do, or just ignore it. But in our job, we have to. My job and Jake, our day job, we have to talk to people every day. It's cold calls all the time, and then we get to know the people. So you have to be, and just like your son with recruiting, you have to be able to do that cold call, reach out, touch someone, and maybe get them to come in and see what you have to offer.
Oh, totally. And, you know, you have to, the cold call, you know, you have to be on. I mean, like working on the hill, you know, if you're not on the hill very long. It's very simple. You know, they can get someone else who can stand there with a smile on their face and take notes and say the right things. But, you know, I always gave my kids tests, even when they were young. And that's part of what's in the book. And they were tests to make them get out in that world. The biggest test the first test I ever started and became the foundation for everything was, we were in this big indoor mall in DC, and I took $5 bills out of my pocket, 3 of them. I gave them to each kid. And the oldest was 7, the youngest was 4. And I said, go get the old man change. I said, I'll be standing right here, and there's swirling people and it's crowded and noisy. I said, go get the man meet change. It's not a race, but you got to come back. And of course they were delighted. You know, here's a real test. This is the real world. And of course they go off and, you know, couple strike out at some stores, and then they finally all come back with the change. One kid's got 20 quarters in his pocket, and the whole episode, we just repeated again and again and again and made it even more dramatic. You know, here's the old man's ATM card. Go in those 4 stores over there and get me $300 in cash. Or we're sitting at a restaurant, you point to the 6-year-old and you say, you are going to memorize all the orders at the table and you're going to repeat it to the waiter. And that's it. And you build these kind of tests. So when these kids really get in a bind, they don't fold, they don't panic. You know, they immediately think of a way to get through the challenge.
I just got a question from X Twitter from Elight to you. How do audiences react when you tell them about your approach and your book?
They don't like it. Some don't like it. And I'm just unfiltered. You know, I'm an older guy. I've got 3 older sons. You know, I have a ton of service friends, guys that were in my unit. I have a ton of jock friends, all these, you know, I live 3 miles from the Naval Academy, so I'm around all those type of people. Those type of people don't even blink. It's others that will blink and say, well, wait a minute, you can't do that. You can't turn them loose in a mall to go get change. And I said, yes, I did. I did many times. Thank you. And guess what? They're all just doing fine, and just the whole idea of the screens. Well, kids have to be on these screens. No, they don't. And neither do you. So it's received sometimes not in a good way, but I guess the validation is, Rich, you guys are coming to see me because you wanted to hear about these 3 kids, who went to those kinds of schools and had that record of achievement. And this is how it happens. And it happens, as I say, the biggest shock that people get, X, I'll tell you, is when I say 75% of their lives that you'll be with them is spent by the age of 12. They flip because some have kids that are 15 and they're going, uh-oh, what, how do I make up the lost time?
Yep. They just missed everything. And like,
yeah,
our high school years, you spent it running the hallways, talking trash, doing whatever you had to do in high school. And you have friends for life. Even if you didn't like them then, somehow you still talk to them. The ones that are still around, you still talk to them now. And it's weird, but it worked. You wouldn't understand it back then, why it worked. And now this generation has no idea because they have no idea who's in their class.
Oh, yeah. Right.
They'll run into them. They don't even know. And it's just horrible.
Yeah. And I'm so glad you bring that up, Rich, because, my best friends are 7 guys that I was with in 4th grade onwards. Nice. And they all live all over the country. Most of them live in California and LA, where I grew up. But those are my tightest friends. Through all the years I've been in politics and in the service, I've got about 5 ex-Army buddies who are tight as hell. But those are the ones. So you're exactly right. Today, I talk to teachers all the time, and I talk to teachers from high-end school districts, Montgomery County, Loudoun County, some of the richest, wealthiest counties in the United States in this area are in this area. And they just this August, instituted a no cell phone policy in class. Yeah. Prior years, kids would be in class and they'd get phone calls and they would answer them as a teacher is trying to teach. Or they would have the phone out doing things, trying under the desk, texting. Like I said, high-end high schools where these teachers were just, resigning left and right because they said, I've had enough. I've got my 25 years. I'm going to get out of here. So Exactly. Just what you said earlier about not knowing people in your class because they're so self-absorbed in the screen.
Right. I was up in Loudoun. I think it was December. December the last 2 years I've been up in Loudoun for a class for work, and both times we stay in the same area, pretty close to where we're working with the military industrial complex up there. So it's kind of run down that area because it's like warehouses and such. But they always say it's the richest county. I say it can't be. And then you just drive 2 blocks out and you can see why it happens. And what's there to make it happen. It's insane that the amount of money in that little area.
It is. It's unbelievable. I have some buddies that live out, political buddies who live in Loudoun, and that, you go to their homes and their neighborhoods and you're stargazing, oh my gosh,
From Google at Greenwater Navy dude, I'm guessing it is. How hard is it for this generation to turn off the devices?
Well, I'll tell you, Google guy, it's really hard. And, and that's why, it has to be seized. You cannot count on a kid. And I'm being very broad brush in these strokes, but again, I have the statistics in back of me, just parenthetically. Kids ages to 3 to 5, they average nearly 110 minutes a day on a screen. Think of that, age 3 to 5.
God.
Almost 2 hours a day. So the thing is, Google, you got to yank it out of their hands and you got to say, here is what we're going to do. And in my books on kids, another one that I wrote was Your Kids Rebound from Pandemic Lockdowns, A Parent's Guide to Restoring Your Family. I put in the back the examples of social media contracts where you sit down with your kids and say, okay, here's the new rules. You get an hour on that thing a day. The routers go off in the house at 8. You don't yank it out in the car or in a store or at the dinner table. And I'm not going to do it either. So the contract is the parent and the kid. And if there are breaches of the contract, the simple one, that phone is mine for the next week. Thank you. So it's not going to be a voluntary situation. It's going to be mandatory. And, you know, another thing that sets people off, I'll go back to what X said, man. I always will say to people, it's called parenting, not childing.
Yes. Not friending.
Yeah, not friending. I'm not here to be your friend. If you don't have any other friends, you're already doomed.
And I failed.
I am a parent and I'm taking away the phone and that's it. There's no negotiation. So maybe that would be my answer.
That's a great answer. I think they haven't said anything back, so I'm guessing it worked. So usually that's usually my indicator if they don't say nothing crazy back. But,
yeah, it is.
I forgot to even mention this. You are Polynesian ancestry from the Māori Indians, New Zealand. Did you play rugby too, or did your son just watch the All Blacks and say, I got to play?
You know, my son kind of had a fixation with the All Blacks, but he had never touched a rugby ball until he got to West Point.
Wow.
Yeah, and they weren't taking walk-ons for the football team, so all the plebes that went over there at the end of Beast Summer, they took him to the football field, and the coach told the bus driver that, so they drove him over to the rugby field and said, well, you can try this. And, you know, some of the kids had played rugby, others hadn't. So my kid just went out there. He's a pretty big kid. He's athletically, he's pretty talented. And he made the team, you know, as a frosh and just kept grinding. I mean, he's a badass. And by the third year, he was starting. And by the fourth year, he was the highest scorer in the nation. And then first team All-American. Then they went to the college championships. And he was MVP of the championships, and then they won the whole thing, the college championships, and then he got drafted by the pro rugby team. So it was a good run. But again, you know, it's the military values. He was following in the footsteps of his two older brothers, you know, in terms of the service and the commitment and what it takes. So
he went the right direction with the Army. So you got one out of three correct. So it was good.
Yeah, the other guys weren't tough enough for the Army. That's why they went Navy.
I'm sure it's fun in your house in December.
Oh man, it can get actually kind of edgy. It can, but you know, and you know this, Rich, and you know probably Jake does too when he joins you, you know, because he was service. On last Christmas, they stood at my house, and it was the first time all three of them had been in the same room in 5 years.
Wow.
Yeah, 5 years of deployments. And there we were, Christmas Eve. They were all at my house. Obviously, I was there. And first time in 5 years that all three had just sat together in a room, you know, shooting the breeze. So that, you know, that's the other part of the service that makes you tough too.
Separation makes the heart grow fonder too. So.
Exactly.
Did your son beat Navy in rugby when he was playing?
Yes, that was a big game. They had it at FedEx Field out here in DC.
Okay.
And so that was a big win, and it was a big win on the way to making it to the championship series. So, and he's really become enamored of the Maori history. His middle name, I gave each kid a Polynesian middle name. His name was Koi Koi, which was a name, Peroni Koi Koi was his great grandfather, was the last Maori to fight the whites, the English. Wow. And so he just adopted that name, you know, right after high school. And so that's what he goes by. And he actually taught himself the Maori language. So he can actually speak it. But he was the language guy at West Point. He was an Arabic French major. So he's got a pretty good ear for languages.
Wow.
So, which makes him also attracted to the Army. Just, you know, there's not too many Caucasian badasses who can speak Arabic and French and be infantrymen. So
and be infantrymen at the end of that. Yes.
Yeah, man.
That's not something you see often at all.
No.
Steve from the Tuesday Crusade was watching a video today saying this generation can't even go into a restaurant and talk to a waiter or waitress. they can't call to make a doctor's appointment.
Steve, gosh, there you go. I gave you the earlier example of, I made my kids. I never ordered a thing in a restaurant for like a decade because it always was a kid doing it for the whole damn table. And sometimes if there was 10 people at the table, he was writing it down. But that's the way it worked. The other thing that I did, it's funny, Steve should bring this up. I made them do all their appointments on the phone. They had to call and say the dentist appointment, the doctor's appointment. Oh, I have to get these forms for this lacrosse league, or I need to call these people about getting a reservation for this. They did it all. I would not get on the phone for them. And I would sometimes when they were younger, I'd write it out what they had to say and what maybe the answer would be back from whoever they talked to, but they had to do it on their own. So they're really, they're confident guys, but it starts early. You start putting that reflex and muscle memory in them early that they have to do things. And then, the kid at 5 years old who gets lost, whose parent, he's with a birthday party. It's a 5-year-old kid. The parents walk away totally irresponsible with 13 other kids into a theater and leave these 3 guys, including my son, in this food court. And they're all alone. And the 2 other kids start crying and shrieking. And my kid says, shut the hell up. I know what to do here. My dad once told me, if you get lost in a crowd, because we were at a college football game, he says, you're not tall enough to see anything. So just look for that guy or that gal with the stripe running down their pants. And that's a soldier or a security guard or a policeman. And that's what they did. He said, just look for that stripe. And after about 3 minutes, they found a guy that went running up to him, grabbing the legs, finally got reunited with the parents in the theater. But the other 2 kids fold. My kid's, the first thing he's thinking is that we can get out of this. There's a way out. Well, it's the same kid who's sitting on the bridge of a guided missile destroyer in the Persian Gulf at night, dodging mines and Iranian patrol boats. And the CEO of the ship wants him there. No one else. I want Nelligan, officer of the deck. He's on the bridge. He's going to drive us through this all night, night after night. So that's what it results in. If they have that confidence early, they get these big, big tests where they can pull it off.
So we got stationed in Korea for 2008, 2010. I think my daughter was 12 to 14. Yeah, so 4th through 6th grade. And she picked up Korean, Hangul, and then she also picked up Chinese while we were there. So she was just absorbing it. In town in Korea, she decided to sneak out and not take the school bus to school and just walk through the town to get back to the base, the young son to go to school. And she was able to navigate, go to the store, buy stuff, and get to school with no issue. The only reason she got caught was one of her teachers drove by and saw her. That's the only reason why she got caught. So her and her friend got caught. In China, we went to the Temple of the Rising Sun, and there was 2 little girls there. She said, Dad, I'm going to go talk to him. I want to go speak Chinese to him. Go ahead, go talk to him. She went and said hello in Chinese. They said hello in English, and she was totally disappointed right there. But she made 2 friends right there just by speaking their language. So it was like an awesome dad moment.
There you go. And, a daughter like that who can do it at that age, man, at 30, she's kicking ass.
Yeah.
She can be in any environment and just know how to work it. I mean, it's hard to explain to parents that is so key to have that confidence.
Right.
And some get it and some don't. And then those that don't, their kid is 24 living in the basement, getting good at Minecraft.
And yelling, Mom, meatloaf. Mom, meatloaf.
Yeah, exactly. Fix the routers.
Jake said his dad made him talk to the recruiter himself, and he did the same with his son to get him into the military. So, I mean, that's
Jay,
a big step.
Jay, that's the way to do it. The idea is that kid's that's a major league decision. So guess what? You have to be the major league guy in pulling it off.
Right.
I mean, that's great. That's just super.
So Jeff, how did people get in contact with you to maybe chat with you like we're doing right now, learn more about parenting, or just maybe pick your brain and learn how to write a book?
You bet. Hey, you bet. My website is www.nelliganbooks.com. And on there is an email address, jeff@resiliencesons.com. I'm also on Instagram at Nelligan_books. I'm on Twitter at Resilient Sons, and on Facebook at Jeff Nelligan Books. And those are all active accounts. So I'm constantly throwing stuff out there for parents to think about and, get their, put some freaking spine in their kids. And I know it sounds awful, but, you can't, you got to tell the truth. If people want fairy tales, they've not come to the right guy.
They're also part of the problem if they still want fairy tales. So,
yeah, exactly.
All those links are now in the chat. They are also in the notes. I believe I put them in the notes. If not, I'll add them in later. Jeff, this has been great chatting with you. One more thing before I let you go.
Sure, man.
If you can give the audience 3 things they can do better tomorrow as parents or as grandparents, what would that be?
Okay, number one, we kind of went over this, Rich, but it's right. Actionable items. I mean, typical Army stuff, man. Just give it to me. Number one, you got to get control of this phone, this screen. It's got to completely be diminished in a kid's life. And you can do that with a social media contract. Again, as I said, there's 5 different examples of these social media contracts in my book, Your Kids Rebound from Pandemic Lockdowns. I'd be happy to send it to any the contracts to anybody who is interested. The second thing is, like I said, you've got to get kids focused on reading and absorbing things where a screen is passive. A book makes you work. And the reading does 2 things. Number one, it really improves the intellect. And number 2, it really improves the imagination. The third thing I pointed out earlier was to get the kid out of the house with just you and walk the neighborhood and see different things. Maybe it's walk the park. Maybe it's walk a boulevard. Maybe it's walk a mall, whatever. No phone, no devices or anything. Just you and the kid, he or her, to just let him see that, or her see that there's such a world out there outside the front door. The last thing is, and this is something I did with every kid, and I still do it. When they about 5 years old, each week I would take one or two. Well, I take one on a Saturday and one on a Sunday, and we go to the most peaceful place on the planet, high school bleachers, at about 7:30 in the morning on a Saturday or Sunday. And we just sit down and we'd have some donuts, and I'd say, okay, tell me what went on this week. What's hot? What's not? What's good, or what's, you got some questions here, pal. And I will tell you about my week and what I did and how I navigated all these people. We started that at 5 years old for each kid. I still do it today when the kids come back from, or kids, the men come back from deployments. We'll go out to those same damn bleachers and sprawl across them early morning, cup of coffee and some donuts. And I'll say, okay, man, what the hell went on the South China Sea? Tell me, or what was it like in the Med when you were at Crete or in Greece, even the kid who was at West Point. Hey, what was the biggest challenge you had this semester in terms of classes? I mean, we started that a long time ago, but it's a release valve for the kid to get to know you in a really good way, but also for the kid just to unload what's good and bad. And so those 4 things you could start tomorrow, and they will change. I mean, the phone alone will change the whole dynamic of your relationship with your kid or your grandkid. So those are 4 things. They're easy to do, and they all involve, as we began this whole discussion, Rich, parent engagement.
Definitely. 100%. Thank you, Jeff, again, for taking your time on a Thursday night to hang out with us.
Oh, man.
I'll start for everyone. You're happy. So I know you'll be rooting for someone up there. Hopefully, hopefully a good team you root for, if you root for one. And you have a great weekend. It's been awesome seeing you guys this week. We'll see you again on Sunday night. Have a good night, Jeff.
All right. Thanks.
This message is from the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. Did you serve in the military? If so, you can obtain a free lifetime pass to more than 2,000 federal recreation sites. These sites are located across more than 400 million acres of public lands, including national parks, wildlife refuges, and forests. The lands host activities to fit any lifestyle: hiking, biking, fishing, camping, and much more. Gold Star families are also eligible for these free lifetime passes. Plus, they cover entrance fees for a driver and all passengers in a car, or up to 3 additional adults at sites that charge per person. Obtaining one is easy. Just go to the National Park Service website, nps.gov, or the National Park Service app.
Thanks for checking us out and being a part of the Misfit Nation show. Don't forget to visit our website at themisfitnation.com. That's themisfitnation.com. Check out all our past episodes and get some of the great Misfit Nation gear for you and your family. As always, be humble, stay hungry, and keep hustling, because we are
Misfit Nation. Misfit Nation.